There will never be another man like Stone Cold Steve Austin, and he's probably the only reason the WWE is even around anymore. He was the hero during the Monday Night War era, when WWE versus WCW was happening. And it really was a close competition. But let's go back in time before that. Stunning Steve Austin was how this man started his career, and as you can see from his belt, he was actually in WCW. Who would have known that this would be the face of the WWE right here? Look how silly he looked. Like, what the fuck is he doing? His career started off as a roller coaster of events. He was nowhere near Stone Cold Steve Austin's status yet, and he was given a manager at the start. He also wrestled in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and not a lot of people know this. He had 4 matches there, and when he came back, he was thrown into a tag team. He was not excited to be in this tag team, but his partner kicked off his whole career.
And they weren't even trying to give us a push, and we won the tag titles and started to get over, and they split us up. Had Flying Brian and Stunning Steve remained together for another 5 years, first of all, I wouldn't have had the Stone Cold career probably.
That's right.
But the Hollywood Blondes would have been in the conversation as one of the greatest tag teams of all time. And I don't put us in that conversation now because we weren't together long enough. And that would be a complete disservice to all the dedicated tag teams that were out there that really specialize in tag team wrestling. So we're not in the conversation, but we could have been.
Now, Steve Austin did eventually turn on his partner, Flying Brian, and then he went on to become the WCW United States Champion. His solo career looks like it's finally starting to kick off. He was finally getting pushed as a solo competitor. He wanted to rival Hulk Hogan, but that was actually turned down. He went back to Japan, but he accidentally got injured, and he had to be out for a couple months. Now, while he was healing from his injury, Eric Bischoff called him to fire him. This man did not see a future for Austin, so he got rid of him, claiming he thought Austin was tough to work with. I bet he tosses and turns in his bed at night. Now a rogue agent, where is Austin going to go? Well, if you guessed ECW, you are correct. This is finally where the flower bloomed. Austin has officially came out of his shell. It's not Stunning Steve Austin anymore. It's Superstar Steve.
Guys who would come through, like Steve Austin came through in ECW, and that's
and a lot of people say, and I think that's right, not where he learned how to talk, but where he got the ability to let what was inside him come out. Because I don't, Steve always could talk, but he figured out what his message was, I think, more in ECW with the freedom.
Yeah, there was the show he showed up, he buzzed his head because he was he liked the way Bruce Willis looked in Pulp Fiction. He shaved his head like that and came in. Paul just put a camera on him and said, say what you got to say. And some of the best promos he did came out.
Austin joining ECW and letting Paul Heyman help him out was one of the best things for his career. He actually credits Paul Heyman as the man who taught him how to cut promos. Best way to learn is from the best. Paul Heyman is seriously one of the greatest things that has ever happened to pro wrestling. He only fought in ECW for a year, but that's where he really polished his skills. And then this happened. Kevin Nash and JR convinced Vince McMahon to hire Austin. He came in with this gimmick, the Ringmaster. Sounds like dookie dog shit. On his debut episode of Raw, he actually won the $1 Million belt, and Ted DiBiase was his manager. He beat this guy on his debut. Who do you think this is? If you guessed Matt Hardy, you're correct. Now, his big push was supposed to come during the 1996 Royal Rumble. No, he wasn't supposed to win the Royal Rumble yet, but he was supposed to be the top 4 guys. And it was supposed to seal him as a real competitor until Fatu arrived. Austin and Fatu were fighting in the corner. Fatu is Rikishi, if you didn't know. And when he knocked him out of the ring, Austin didn't latch on correctly. He fell out and hit both feet on the ground. Thankfully, it wasn't too big of a f*** up because they didn't fire him. This is just around the time where Austin thought the Ringmaster gimmick was stupid and he wanted it to be done. His hair was already thinning for a few years, so he decided to shave his head completely. And they were gonna give him some crazy gimmick name. The name that they were gonna give him was Fang McFrost.
I went home and I was drinking a few beers at the house, and I was watching a special on HBO about Richard Kuklinski. It was called The Iceman. And the Iceman was a hitman for hire in the Chicago mob. Totally remorseless, just a ruthless individual, no emotion about him. And I said, man, this guy, there's something about this guy that's really got my gears going. So I pitched my idea to the office, and they said, okay, Steve, we'll think about it. And they faxed me 3 pages of the worst names I'd ever seen in the history of my life. And the 3 names that I'll never forget, based on this cold-blooded, ruthless individual, were Otto von Ruthless, Ice Dagger, and Fang McFrost. And man, it don't get no more suck-ass than that. And so I'm thinking, are you kidding me? These creative geniuses are You know, these are the guys that make superstars.
Could you imagine the WrestleMania main event, The Rock versus Fang McFrost? Luckily, his wife at the time came up with the name Stone Cold. Austin was drinking tea and she told him to finish it before it got Stone Cold, and that's what made the light bulb shine. But not everybody believed in Stone Cold Steve Austin. Ted DiBiase was set to leave the company, and he made sure to tell Austin not to listen to the advice producers were giving him. He made sure to tell Austin to bet on himself and to do his own thing. And that's when King of the Ring 1996 happened. And we actually get the birth of Stone Cold Steve Austin, with one of the most important promos in all of wrestling history.
The fourth prestigious King of the Ring, Stone Cold Steve Austin, an incredible victory.
The first thing I want to be done is to get that piece of crap out of my ring.
The piece of crap he's referring to is Jake the Snake Roberts. This is the last person Austin had to beat to become the King of the Ring. Jake the Snake's gimmick was a reborn Christian, so that's why Austin did a 316 speech.
Don't just get him out of the ring, get him out of the WWF. Because I've proved, son, without a shadow of a doubt, you ain't got what it takes anymore. You sit there and you thump your Bible and you say your prayers, and it didn't get you anywhere. Talk about your Psalms, talk about John 3:16. Austin 3:16 says I just whipped your ass. And when I get the shot, you're looking at the next WWF champion, and that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so.
This was a changing point in his career. This is where the two catchphrases caught on and made history. This would have never happened if it wasn't for that curtain call incident where Nash, Hall, Triple H, and Shawn hugged it out after an event. Austin will go on to be the top merchandise seller of all time in the WWE. Now, remember the Hollywood Blondes? Brian Pillman and Steve Austin are in the WWE now. But they're far away from a tag team. No, instead they started feuding against each other. Between these two, we get one of the craziest segments that we have ever seen in pro wrestling. It was enough for some people in the crowd to actually call 911 thinking it's real. Stone Cold Steve Austin can be seen walking into the house with Brian Pillman waiting for him to nerf battle. As soon as Austin walks into the house, Pillman starts yelling, the sound goes off and the TV goes static. The people at home actually thought they witnessed something they shouldn't have. This incident actually almost caused WWE to get pulled off the USA Network. Now, shortly after this incident, their feud was dropped. And this is when Steve Austin started feuding with the Hart family. He would go on to face Bret Hart numerous times for the title, but always come up a little short. Eventually, he started feuding with Owen Hart. But the Owen Hart feud would shape Stone Cold Steve Austin's whole career.
Eventually, we set up the pile driver spot. I spun Owen around and he landed on his feet. Then he picked me up, upside down, and wham, dropped straight to his ass. There was simply no room for me to protect my head. But with the jump up and the impact down, man, I got spiked headfirst into the mat hard as hell. That's one of the things that's going to turn you into a quadriplegic quicker than anything.
This was not a small injury. Austin walked off really lucky at the end of the day. Even Steve Austin is a human, and the severity of this injury scared the shit out of him. He thought he would be paralyzed for life, and it was hard for fans to watch as their hero was practically dragged out of the arena.
I remember kind of picking my head up from the mat and telling the referee, Earl Hebner, tell him not to fucking touch me, I can't move. Earl got up and told Owen, don't touch him, he can't move. I said, tell him to buy me some time. Earl told him that, so Owen started chanting to the crowd, now he's gonna have to kiss my ass. He was buying me the time I needed to recover. A minute or a minute and a half went by and I finally started getting a little bit of feeling back in my limbs. Still, we had to get to the finish, and I had to win. So I was crawling around on my elbows and I told the referee, roll up for the win. He told Owen what I'd called, and the next thing that happened was I did the worst looking roll up in wrestling history because I couldn't use my limbs.
Now, this injury would shorten Austin's career, but he did use it to actually help his career out too. When life gives you lemons, make beer.
They took me to the hospital for x-rays and I was released. I bought myself a 12-pack of beer, laid in bed at the hotel, and finally went to sleep. Despite everything, I got up the next day and drove to Bethlehem, Pennsylvania to do Raw, cut a promo on Owen, because I'm Stone Cold Steve Austin.
That's just the kind of badass man he is. Fans were going crazy over him. He returned in a neck brace and he tore it off in the same night. The night he came back, Vince McMahon had Austin arrested because he gave him the stunner, due to Vince not letting him compete since he wasn't medically cleared. Stone Cold didn't really like that, so he started feuding with The Rock when he came back. And Austin won the Intercontinental Championship from The Rock and was ordered to defend it by Vince McMahon. But then he just decided to protest and throw the championship in the Piscataqui River. Hopefully I didn't butcher that. Shortly after this, Vince McMahon would have special guest Mike Tyson, and Stone Cold, being the man that he is, would come out and flip Mike Tyson off, pissing off Vince McMahon. Then he goes out and wins the 1998 Royal Rumble, and Vince personally hands him the title, but he tells him how displeased he is of Austin, and this will spark one of the best feuds we have ever seen. Could you imagine going to work every day and beating the shit out of your boss? Austin was the biggest thing in the world at the moment. Everybody knew what WWE was. Not even hospitals could save Vince. We would see Austin's famous beer cannon during this feud. This moment was so iconic that they would replicate it many times throughout the years, and he would go out and destroy Vince's cars. The budget for this feud was actually insane. Austin was bigger than
Your boss in the mouth, and I got a chance to literally and figuratively do that almost every Monday night on Raw.
Some part of us really loves watching the bad guys get over. Maybe the part of us that doesn't like the fact that we have to behave ourselves. And you can't go around shoving people. You can't go around insulting people.
And Stone Cold hammered away on the boss.
Now, from 1999 to 2001, Steve Austin will see himself in many different feuds. Some of the most popular ones is the one with Triple H, and these guys would tear the house down. They even won Tag Team Gold together and faced the Brothers of Destruction. This would lead up to the first ever 6-man, and the only ever 6-man Hell in a Cell match, which Kurt Angle would put his title on the line and defend it successfully. Now, Kurt Angle said that he wasn't ready for that 6-man match. Everybody else had to carry him throughout the match. He was only in the company for a year, and he was waiting to get better in the ring so he can face Austin. I talk a lot more about this in another video if you want to go check it out. It's on my TikTok and my YouTube. As you can see, it has no views. That really makes me happy. But anyway, Angle was finally ready to face off against Austin, and these two were one of the best things to happen in the WWE. These guys were pure comedy gold, but they can tear the house down. Remember that beer cannon that I was talking about earlier in the video? Well, it comes back, just like I said, with Kurt Angle's milk cannon. I mean, beer versus milk. These guys were funny and amazing. We all know how much Angle loves his gold medals. Well, Austin knew this as well. That's why he threw them right into the river. And I shit you not, Kurt Angle kidnapped Steve Austin and threatens to throw him in the same river. Wild times. But now let's talk about one of the craziest time in the wrestling world. And he got arguably the loudest pop in all of wrestling history.
And this crowd coming alive, chanting for Stone Cold. And there he is! There's Stone Cold!
This was the Invasion era. It was when WCW and ECW invaded the WWF at the time by forming an alliance. This storyline had everything it needed to be one of the greatest things to come out from wrestling. That pop we just heard was when Austin actually came out and saved the WWF on an episode of Raw. WCW and ECW, the Invasion, invaded, and he was a heel before he came out, so this was a face turn for him. When the Invasion started, Steve Austin was not an ally to the WWF. He was teaming up with WCW and ECW. His whole gimmick changed. He became a whiny bitch instead of being a badass like he always has been. But then he came out and helped fight off the Invasion, and that's when he got that pop. This was Austin's time. He came out and kicked ass just like the crowd wanted, and they were eating it up. This was the man that was going to save all of the WWE.
There's Stone Cold! There's the Yellowstone!
Then of course Vince McMahon shits on everything, no pun intended. Vince McMahon loves himself almost more than he loves money. After the Invasion era, we see Austin start to not give a shit. He was set to fight Brock Lesnar, and he was supposed to job for him for the King of the Ring tournament. Now, Stone Cold didn't mind losing to Brock Lesnar, but he didn't like the idea of just losing to him in a regular match. He wanted some sort of build-up towards it. So Stone Cold did a no-call, no-show and walked out of the WWE at this time. He was also going through some domestic issues with his then wife, and we thought this was the end. No way Vince calls him back. But everybody has a price, and Stone Cold didn't want to leave with a sour taste, so he came back for one last match and one last feud with The Rock. He knew his time was short because his neck injury was really acting up and his in-ring career was coming to an end. These two would have a legendary match at WrestleMania 19, and Austin would come out the victor at the end, retiring him from the WWE. He would make small appearances here and there throughout the years, but us fans knew his in-ring career was over. He was getting older and his neck injury was catching up with him. Or so we thought. We thought that age played a role. We thought his neck was injured enough not to be able to wrestle. We thought he was content with his last match. That is until this man arrived. Meet Kevin Owens, the man who changed everything. Kevin Owens started using the stunner, obviously move that Stone Cold Steve Austin made famous, all in the hopes of playing a long game to see if Austin would come back for one more match. Screw Albert Einstein's theories. Kevin Owens is playing chess while others are playing checkers, because this did make Stone Cold come out of retirement for one more match. Stone Cold Steve Austin did not miss a beat. Something about watching Kevin Owens hit a stunner was so amazing. It was a long fought battle, but Stone Cold did eventually hit the stunner on Kevin Owens and pulled the victory, thus ending the Rattlesnake's career. Thank you for everything you have done.